let's start Module C now. All the Module C questions can start coming in now. We're also going to have some more practice like we did in the beginning-ish, where we did the images and we deconstructed them together and found some techniques in them. So get ready. We're going to have those coming as well, which are very fun because that's interactive. All right, so for Module C, you won't have, it is another common module, right? You will be doing essentially the same sort of stuff as English Advanced as well. So in Module C, you don't actually have just one prescribed text. It says there you'll be studying 2, but typically 3 is the golden number, okay? You'll look at 3 of these texts. Now, you're probably thinking, oh my gosh, 3 texts, how are we going to handle 3 texts? You don't look at it in the same way you do for Common Mod, Mod A, Mod B. You're not going to write an essay just on these texts. You don't need to remember any quotes. Nessa have actually said you don't need to remember any quotes from your Module C text. They're really just there as inspiration, as we were talking about before. You really need to look at them and say, okay, I like how The Pedestrian by Ray Bradbury has used imagery. I want to mimic that, okay, and create imagery very similar to the way Bradbury did it. That's the kind of stuff you're doing. All right, so this is the rubric. Really, this is how Year 12 English works. The Common Mod is where you learn about human experiences, okay, and different experiences people have as part of being human. Mod A is building on top of that and saying, all right, human experiences then make an identity. You are basically the sum of all your experiences. That's your identity. Identities together, a bunch of identities together, form a culture, okay? And obviously we need to bring in language because this is English, and we need to look at the way, language can shape and reflect that. And then we go into Module B, where we start to look at really the how, I don't want to say the craft of writing because I don't want to confuse you guys, but how language is really being used to create meaning. We're looking at that in the Common Mod and Mod A, of course, but Mod B is really about form, okay? It's really, really about the construction of language on its own. Whereas Mod A especially Mod A is really about how language is doing, shaping and reflecting identity and culture. Mod B is really about the construction of language for meaning on its own. And then Mod C is basically Nessa really flipping it back on you and saying, all right, we've shown you all these different elements of the craft of writing. You show us you can do it now. And so that's basically what this rubric is saying, that you've learned all these different aspects of the craft of writing, such as how to use language to shape identities and culture, how to represent human experiences, motivations, emotions, feelings, and how to actually craft writing as per your study of Mod B. So now you need to do it. All right. What makes good creative writing? It recognizes and works with the economy of words. Each sentence should have significance and add meaning. It's also filled with different macro and micro techniques. So macro techniques are what I was talking about with form, things like setting, characterization, a motif happens all throughout the text. Micro techniques are what I was talking about, where they occur only on that one page, on that one line. Things like metaphor, as I keep saying. If you have believable and well-paced narrative frameworks, if you're judicious about dialogue, you have research behind it, it has intention and purpose. That's the biggest thing that I'm going to hone in on here. For Module C, it's so clear who has an intention and who has purpose in their writing and who doesn't. You need to have an intention before you start writing. And the best way to do that is have some pre-prepared purposes that you could talk about and you could use in your creative writing, and use them, when you can. Okay. This is an example of a creative piece, and you can see how this little extract does all of these things. Okay, I'm not going to read it out again. You guys can probably download, or you can download these slides, and when you download these slides, you can have a look at these. But yeah, as I said, it does everything that we just went through. Okay, biggest thing, hands down, for Module C, I'm going through the main things. I know I said the why, I spoke about that link. Now for Module C, for creative writing, the biggest thing is show, don't tell. This shouldn't be too shocking. We've heard this plenty of times before, but it's really the truth. So many students will just say, I don't know, yeah, Susie was cold, something like that. Instead of saying Susie was cold, tell me through dialogue. It's quite chilly outside, isn't it? Susie commented. So it's been revealed that Susie feels cold. Or by her actions, she wrapped the scarf around her neck like a boa constrictor. Okay? You've shown me that obviously she feels cold, so she's acted against that. All through the setting, an icy breeze circled the room. Standing right underneath the air conditioner, Susie shivered. Okay, so there are different ways you can show me and not just tell me. That's the biggest thing. That's what creates good writing. That's what's engaging as a marker. All right, what makes good discursive, persuasive, and informative writing? Because that's the other type of writing you'll be doing, not only creative writing. It has direction and an objective with a personal touch. It's writing about what you know and what you're confident in. It writes appropriately to audience, so it can be formal or informal depending on who your audience is. It has research and evidence to back up points, particularly if it's a persuasive. It has, again, intention and purpose, and that comes down to research and having your pre-prepared purposes, as I've been talking about. All right, this is a question I saw someone ask. How do we achieve better practice in writing? Drawing from a variety of influences and sources from inspiration, emulating and transforming the stylistic features of other texts into our own, and striving to be more critical and reflective of our intention, purpose, and representations. A lot of people can easily get good ideas. Oh my gosh, sorry guys, I'm gonna have a drink of water. Oh goodness. A lot of people can get good ideas really easily. It's mostly just the writing part and people struggle with. So something that I used to do to help me improve my creative writing is Google, and I know I've mentioned this in a previous lecture, so hopefully I'll repeat it for you guys that maybe you don't remember, or maybe you didn't go to those lectures. I would Google literary techniques glossary, and you can literally find, I think Matrix Education has one. There's heaps online of just like literally like a dictionary or a glossary of heaps of different literary techniques. And what I would do is basically say, all right, let me pick out this technique, and this technique. And I'm going to write for 5 minutes introduction to a piece, to a creative piece. And I'm going to use those 3 different micro techniques. Even though they might be really small and I only use them once, it's still giving me practice with them and it's still improving my writing. And yes, we do want to see those big macro techniques in your writing, but truly the students that do better are the ones that also have those small, really hidden, subtle literary devices as well. So that would be a big, big tip that I would say to improve your writing. And use your prescribed texts for Module C. Don't worry too much about this now because obviously you haven't really looked at them in depth. But when you start to look at your Mod C text, look at the way they write and what you could emulate from them. Look at different text types, poems, letters, diary entries to draw from more inspiration as you write. If you're struggling to come up with ideas, think about current issues and what you think is worth voicing. And also, there is a website that I used all the time, and I can't believe I didn't write it down here. I think it's like Pebbles 365, or it's something called that. But there are a bunch of different websites like this. It's basically a creative artwork generator, and it generates a random artwork. And another thing I used to do is generate a random artwork, set a timer for 10 minutes and write a creative based on the artwork, whether it be something that it inspired in me conceptually, so it's not necessarily that my characters are in the setting, it's reminded me of something and then I want to talk about that, or I'm bringing my characters into the setting, or I've used it to come up with a character. Whatever it may be, it helped me get inspiration and think of different ideas. So even there are now those like AI art generator things, something like that you could definitely use. Or another thing I used to do is like literally Google artwork about loneliness, and then like the same thing, set a timer and write about the artwork, like a creative piece based on the artwork, or even discursive piece. Those are other things that I did as well, and that's a good way to come up with ideas. All right, Do be aware of the believability of your writing. Maintain control over the voice and tone of the speakers in your piece. Yes, don't have a shift randomly of the way your character speaks or even the way the character behaves. Have alternate endings, plot points, setting, perspectives. Yeah, don't go in with one story. Have different stories pre-prepared that you can bend and you can change the ending depending on what you're being asked about. Also have a perspective, aka have a purpose. You must be trying to teach your reader about something or show them something that they haven't seen before. Okay, so you have to have a perspective. You cannot just be writing aimlessly. Your marker is really craving that authorial intent from you. Don't write something that goes nowhere, as I was just saying, and write with no message or purpose. Okay, that fits into what I was saying really nicely. You must have a purpose.